In April 1988, an intense 24-hour battle unfolded in the Persian Gulf, marking the end of one era of naval warfare and the dawn of another. This was Operation Praying Mantis, where the U.S. Navy clashed with the Iranian Navy in the largest surface battle since World War II. What sparked this conflict, and how did the U.S. Navy achieve such a decisive victory? To understand this monumental clash, we must journey back to the chaotic environment of the late 1980s. The Iran-Iraq War was raging, and the Persian Gulf had become a volatile battleground. Saddam Hussein's unprovoked invasion of Iran had escalated into a brutal stalemate, with both sides resorting to desperate measures, including chemical warfare and massive human wave attacks. In September 1980, Iraq launched an invasion of Iran. Scholars and historians continue to debate the exact reasons why Saddam Hussein, Iraq's dictator, did this, but it was likely a combination of factors. One primary reason, cited by Saddam publicly, was to prevent either country from meddling in each other's affairs. Following the Iranian Revolution of 1979, powerful extremists had taken root in Iran and were interested in exporting their version of Islam to the world. Saddam, wanting Iraq to remain secular and nationalist-focused, did not want Iran stirring up trouble with Iraq's Shia minority, as he was already dealing with Kurdish uprisings and could not afford issues with the more numerous Shia Iraqis. Another major issue was territorial. In 1975, Iraq had signed what Saddam viewed as a very one-sided agreement regarding a border dispute over sea access on Iraq's small coastline with Iran. During the one-year war preceding the agreement, Iraq's outdated military was defeated handily by Iranian forces. Since the agreement, Iran had not handed over the land promised to Iraq, leading to further tensions. 2 weeks before the invasion, Iraqi troops forcibly annexed the area stipulated as Iraqi land in the treaty. The last reason for Saddam's invasion was his desire to unseat Egypt as the leader of the Arab world. With Saddam focused on bolstering the power of the Iraqi military, he saw Iran's post-revolution weakness as an opportunity to strike. Though the Iraqis initially made good progress, fanatical resistance, mountainous terrain, and the survival of key Iranian equipment slowed and then halted Iraq's invasion. In the coming 18 months, the Iranians pushed the Iraqis back across the international border, leading to a vicious stalemate. During this period, both sides sought ways to tip the war in their favor, resorting to chemical weapons and human wave attacks by Iran's Basij volunteers, leading to immense casualties. As the war dragged on with no end in sight, Iraq opened a new front by attacking Iranian shipping and oil infrastructure in the Gulf. While attacks started in 1980, they intensified in 1984 when Iraqi warplanes began targeting the central and southern Persian Gulf. Iran responded by attacking tankers carrying Iraqi oil, especially those leaving from Kuwait. In February 1986, Iranian troops captured the Al-Fa Peninsula in southern Iraq, cutting off Iraq from the sea and providing Iran a platform to attack Kuwaiti tankers. Facing increased attacks, Kuwait turned to the international community for help. Initially approaching the Soviets, who agreed to reflag Kuwaiti ships under Soviet protection, the U.S. intervened to prevent Soviet expansion in the Middle East. President Reagan declared that the U.S. would reflag Kuwaiti tankers under the U.S. flag and provide naval protection. Operation Earnest will officially began in July 1987, but it effectively started on May 17, 1987, when the guided missile frigate USS Stark was attacked by an Iraqi jet, resulting in 37 crew deaths and significant damage to the ship. This incident, despite involving an Iraqi plane, highlighted the increasing dangers in the region and prompted the U.S. to expand its naval presence, setting the stage for the significant military buildup that followed. This incident galvanized U.S. support and led to the creation of what eventually became today's Fifth Fleet, increasing the force from around 7 ships to over 30. Operation Earnest will involved the U.S. Navy protecting reflagged Kuwaiti tankers, but it also had to confront the Iranian threat directly. This set the stage for Operation Praying Mantis, a decisive clash in the Persian Gulf that showcased the might of the U.S. Navy and marked a turning point in naval warfare. The increase in U.S. Navy ships in the Persian Gulf was necessitated by the need to escort ships as part of Operation Earnest will. These escorts worked as follows: before transiting the Strait of Hormuz, ships would assemble in the Gulf of Oman to meet with their escorts. Once communications had been established and everyone knew the plan, the convoy would head north through the Strait of Hormuz and into the Gulf to their respective ports. On the return trip, escorts inside the Gulf would assemble the ships and escort them back the way they came. This seemingly straightforward task proved challenging, as demonstrated by the first U.S. convoy's experience on July 22, 1987. The convoy, consisting of 3 warships and 2 tankers, including the 400,000-ton former Kuwaiti tanker renamed the Bridgeton, was proceeding smoothly until just north of the Strait of Hormuz. Suddenly, a giant shudder rocked the Bridgeton, revealing a 15-foot hole in its hull caused by a mine. Fortunately, the Bridgeton was empty and not loaded with crude oil. Following the incident, the convoy's protectors had to shift their formation to shield the now vulnerable Bridgeton. With minimal mine warfare capabilities, the convoy was exposed to further threats, but they managed to reach port without additional attacks. Despite the Bridgeton striking a mine, it wasn't initially clear who was responsible. Iraq denied mining the Gulf, and while suspicion fell on Iran, there was no concrete evidence at the time. This incident, however, prompted the U.S. Navy to intensify its efforts to counter the mine threat. The Navy recommissioned 5 retired minesweepers, deployed additional Chapter 53 Sea Stallions, mine-hunting helicopters, and increased the number of helicopters capable of carrying mine-detecting arrays. Army Special Forces and SEAL teams were also brought in to help board suspected mine-laying vessels. Additionally, the Navy created 2 floating helicopter bases to maintain 24/7 helicopter coverage in the region. In September, the U.S. caught Iran in the act of laying mines. A U.S. ship on patrol near a shallow shipping channel northeast of Bahrain spotted a suspicious vessel through night vision goggles. The vessel, a fishing trawler, turned off its lights and began preparing to throw mines overboard. U.S. Army Marshall Islands 6 helicopters, designed to hunt down mine-laying ships, were launched and attacked the vessel with miniguns and rockets. The crew was seen jumping into the water, and a SEAL team boarded the vessel the next morning. The captured vessel, the Iranian-flagged Iran AJR, had 9 naval mines on deck with serial and lot numbers proving their Iranian origin. Despite this evidence, the Reagan administration initially chose restraint. However, another incident a month later changed the U.S. stance. On October 15, 1987, the US-flagged supertanker Sea Isle City was hit by an Iranian Silkworm missile, wounding 18 crew members and blinding the ship's captain. In response, President Reagan ordered Operation Nimble Archer, a limited-scale attack on an Iranian lookout post on a derelict oil platform in the southern Persian Gulf. The mission involved 6 U.S. warships, which gave the Iranians time to evacuate the platform before bombarding it with naval gunfire and demolishing it with explosives. After Operation Nimble Archer, Iranian attacks on US-protected ships decreased, but Iran continued to target other neutral shipping. This led to larger convoys as unaligned vessels sought protection by joining U.S. formations. This tense environment persisted until April 14, 1988, when the guided missile frigate Samuel B. Roberts struck an Iranian mine, creating a 25-foot hole and nearly breaking the ship in half. The crew's heroic damage control efforts kept the ship operational, and it managed to reach Bahrain under its own power. Evidence collected after the incident confirmed the mine's Iranian origin. Iranian naval vessels were seen attempting to retrieve mines, but U.S. teams managed to collect several, confirming Iran's involvement. This incident set the stage for Operation Praying Mantis, a decisive clash that showcased the might of the U.S. Navy and marked a significant turning point in naval warfare. The serial numbers and make of the mines matched those recovered from the Iran AJR the previous fall. With clear, concrete proof that Iran was behind the most recent attack, the U.S. knew drastic measures were necessary. The Reagan administration's decision led the two countries toward an inevitable confrontation. Upon receiving confirmation that Iran was responsible, President Reagan convened his defense team at Camp David to formulate a plan. During the initial discussions, Admiral Crowe, chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, proposed sinking an Iranian warship, specifically the Iranian frigate Savalan. This ship, commanded by an officer nicknamed Captain Nasty, was notorious for forcing merchant vessels to stop, searching them, and then shooting up their bridges and other parts of the ships with gunfire, before sarcastically wishing them a nice day. However, other members in the room advised against this plan, and instead, the decision was made to target the Sasan and Siri platforms. President Reagan gave a strict caveat: if the Iranian Navy attempted to engage U.S. ships, they could be sunk. Thus, Operation Praying Mantis was initiated. The Middle East Force commander divided his 9 surface ships into 3 surface action groups, SAGs. Each SAG was assigned a specific task. SAG Bravo was to destroy the Sasan platform, SAG Charlie the Siri platform, and SAG Delta was to defend against any Iranian ships that might sortie out of port to meet the U.S. force. The attack on the Sasan platform began at 6 o'clock in the morning. After breakfast, U.S. sailors went to general quarters at 7 o'clock a.m. in preparation for the attack. The Americans broadcast a warning over the radio in both English and Farsi, stating that in 30 minutes the platform would be destroyed. A flurry of activity ensued on the platform as Iranians frantically called Tehran for orders, begging the Americans for more time, which was denied. At 8:04 a.m., exactly 30 minutes later, U.S. ships began bombarding the platform with 5-inch airburst rounds. The first round hit just above an anti-air gun, wiping out the crew. After more shells, the Iranians announced they were evacuating. U.S. forces watched as they scrambled onto a tugboat, helping wounded survivors down. Once the tug departed, a helicopter fast-roped a squad of Marines onto the platform, who cleared it and collected intelligence before setting explosive charges and leaving. The platform was then blown up. SAG Charlie, assigned to the Siri platform, set general quarters at 7 o'clock a.m. and began circling the platform. At 7:55 a.m., the ships issued a warning to the Iranians to evacuate. Most heeded the warning and began evacuating. The SAG commander ordered a delay in firing to allow more time for evacuation. However, after 35 minutes and some Iranians still manning their guns, the U.S. ships opened fire with 5-inch shells and 7.6 mm gunfire. Unlike the Sasan platform, the Iranians returned fire until a 5-inch shell hit a compressed gas tank, causing an inferno that incinerated the gun crew. The surviving Iranians then evacuated, and the platform, engulfed in flames, did not require further demolition. Back in Tehran, Iranian leadership was furious. They believed either the U.S. had severely damaged Iran's prestige or, more concerning, that the U.S. had officially joined the war on Iraq's side against Iran. This belief was intensified as, coincidentally, on the same day as Operation Praying Mantis, the Iraqi army launched a major offensive to recapture the Al-Fa Peninsula. Iranian hardliners now considered the U.S. an equal belligerent and sought to engage in battle. The first surface engagement occurred shortly after the destruction of the Siri platform. As SAG Charlie circled the platform, helicopters spotted an Iranian warship heading toward the force. Intelligence confirmed it was the 154-foot patrol craft Joshan, armed with a 7.6 mm gun, a 40 mm gun, crew-served weapons, and American Harpoon missiles. As Joshan approached the USS Wainwright, the Americans issued repeated warnings for her to change course. Unfazed, Joshan fired a Harpoon missile at the Wainwright. The crew took evasive action, launching chaff to divert the missile, which narrowly missed the ship. In response, the Wainwright and the USS Simpson fired small 1 missiles at Joshan, hitting her superstructure and amidships, eventually sinking the ship. As Joshan burned, the Middle East Force Admiral informed the Pentagon, and Admiral Crowe ordered the force to sink her. A helicopter provided targeting adjustments due to the smoke, confirming Joshan's sinking after the first salvo of 5-inch rounds. After sinking Joshan, Iranian F-4 Phantoms approached the U.S. force. Wainwright fired small 1 missiles at the aircraft, hitting one and forcing it to return to base. A period of calm followed, but during this time, the crew realized a Marine Corps Cobra helicopter was missing. The wreckage would be found months later. This pivotal moment demonstrated the U.S. Navy's power and significantly impacted the course of the conflict, marking a turning point in naval warfare history. Though there is still a debate to this day, the pilots probably suffered a sense of vertigo when taking evasive maneuvers to avoid Iranian fire and crashed into the sea. They would be the only American casualties of the operation. Though this was the end of the fighting for SAG Charlie, for SAG Bravo, their day was now heating up too, or so they thought. As SAG Charlie was engaging the Joshan, the ships of SAG Bravo were investigating radar contacts when one piqued their interest. In the distance, there was a fast-moving warship going 25 knots. The USS Merrill sent up a Marine helicopter to investigate and confirm the ship visually. However, the Marines had to keep a safe distance to avoid anti-air fire should the ship turn out to be Iranian. Back on Merrill, the SAG commander grew frustrated that the Marine pilots could not positively identify the ship and asked them to get closer. However, the senior Marine commander did not want to endanger his pilots. Soon, however, the pilots radioed back and said they could see a 3-digit hull number but could not make it out. The sailors on Merrill began scrambling for information to identify the ship. However, according to their sources, there was not a single Iranian ship with a 3-digit hull number. Not wanting to risk a mistake, the SAG commander held his fire. It ended up being the right call since, as the ship closed within 3,000 yards of the force, the crew could tell it was a Soviet cruiser. When asked why they hadn't responded before, the cruiser replied in a heavy accent, "We want to take pictures of history." With that, the Soviet cruiser continued taking pictures, unaware it had almost become another Joshan. But where was the rest of the Iranian Navy? SAG Delta had spent all morning prosecuting potential surface contacts and looking for the Iranian surface fleet to no avail. However, aircraft from the USS Enterprise, in the Gulf of Oman, were conducting patrols in the southern Persian Gulf when they got word that several Iranian bombers, specially made light fast attack craft, were harassing an oil platform and had shot up several merchant vessels. Unsure if they could attack the vessels so close to Iranian territorial waters, the pilots asked for permission to engage. The request went up through the Strike Group Admiral, the Medea S-4 Admiral, and up to Colin Powell and then to President Reagan and back all within 3 minutes. And what was the president's response? Shoot them. With that, the American A-6 intruders engaged the bombers, sinking one and forcing the rest to run aground at Bandar Abbas. But the fight was not over yet. Soon after taking out the bombers, the American jets began seeing what looked like a Somme-class frigate heading towards them. Figuring this was the prized Savalon with Captain Nasty on board, the planes were ordered to investigate the ship and confirm it was Iranian due to SAG Bravo's close call with the Soviet cruiser. As the American jets got closer, one of the A-6s volunteered to fly low over the ship. Though it was not the Savalon, the pilot confirmed it was its sister ship, the Sahand. However, as the pilot flew over the ship, her crew responded with a fury of anti-aircraft fire and shot a missile at the plane. The pilot counterattacked by flying back around and firing a harpoon, several rockets, and a 500-pound bomb. The damage was considerable. By the time SAG Delta arrived on the scene, the Sahand was already a burning hulk. The Sahand did not have a chance. As the 3 ships of the SAG and 7 more aircraft closed in on her, the U.S. forces began pumping missile after missile into her. In total, the Sahand took 12 direct missile hits and sank within minutes. But where was the Savalon? Unknown to the Americans, the captain of the Savalon put her to sea to try and fight the U.S. upon hearing of the loss of their sister ship, the Sahand. Getting underway from Bandar Abbas, it was not long before those same jet fighters that had helped sink the Sahand found the Savalon lurking near the Strait of Hormuz. As the A-6 piloted by Lieutenant Commander James Engler flew in close to visually identify the ship, the crew of Savalon sent up a wall of anti-aircraft fire. Now certain that this was the Savalon, Lieutenant Commander Engler expertly flew his aircraft over the ship and dropped a single 500-pound bomb down one of her stacks. This stack led directly to one of her main engine rooms, and the resulting explosion was catastrophic. Witnesses reported that the entire hull of the Savalon bulged outward and then back in. The ship's stern was underwater, and fires raged everywhere due to this single, decisive strike. With the Savalon now a sitting duck, the rest of Sag Delta was en route to finish her off. But that would not be the case. Sensing that all proportionality had now gone out the window, Admiral Crowe consulted with his fellow chiefs of staff and recommended to President Reagan that U.S. forces not sink the Savalon, which might continue to escalate the fighting further. Wanting to give Iran a way out of this, President Reagan ordered all surface and air units to cease fire and give Iran some breathing space. For Iran's part, they readily took the opportunity to save the Savalon, which was taken under tow and eventually returned to service. With this order, Operation Praying Mantis was now officially over. Though the Gulf remained incredibly tense for the next few days, there was no further fighting. Despite not stopping Iranian attacks on neutral shipping, the US taught Iran a very valuable lesson that day. If the US decided to, they could absolutely annihilate Iranian conventional forces in short order. What did you think about the tactics used in Operation Praying Mantis? Do you believe the US Navy's actions were justified in response to the Iranian threats? How do you think modern naval warfare strategies have evolved since then? Let us know your thoughts and any questions you have in the comments below. And don't forget to subscribe for more in-depth military analysis. Now go check out how the US completely overpowered Iraq in only 100 hours or click this other video instead.